You're listening to the A Bit From Within podcast with Felicia Marty. And so what I'm kind of trying to hope, and I think that this is true, is if you can find a place within yourself where you kind of approach life in that same way. Like, yes, this is a lot of work to get here, but if I get here and I show up and I come with an open heart and I'm as present as I can be, magical things will happen. Hello there, and thank you so much for joining me today for a new episode of the A Bit From Within podcast. My name is Felicia. I am a gentle yoga teacher, meditation teacher, as well as a self-love advocate and certified astrologer, here to share a little bit from within. This podcast is very much a platform for me to be able to come here and help inspire others who are along a similar journey as I am. Those of us dealing with a ton of change, dealing with a lot of critical voices inside of ourselves, and trying to do our best to take good care of ourselves. So if that sounds like you, then you are in good company. I totally understand how hard it is sometimes. Lately, I am going through a really big change myself. I have been a wedding photographer for the past 10 years, and about a year ago, I decided, after the end of last wedding season, I decided that this would be my last year. And so I am very much sliding into home base right now. I actually just finished shooting my last wedding at a venue that I have worked a ton at. I've actually worked there for 10 years. The majority of my weddings that I've shot in my career have been at this venue. And last night was my last wedding at that venue. It was very emotional. I was in tears a lot of the day. And even a couple of times shooting the wedding, I just felt the emotions kind of washing over me. And yet there's also this very strong knowing inside of myself that I've made the right decision. And I feel the universe kind of rising up underneath me right now, giving me little signs, whether it's a quote or an experience, just little things that are just reaffirming that even though I am very scared about what's next, even though I'm feeling a little bit lost, it's okay. I'm where I'm supposed to be, and I'm learning to accept that right now. And actually what I'm learning right now is to admit that I'm a little scared. So that's why I said that so freely, is because it's something I'm really working on right now. This week is just to admit, like, I'm a little scared. I don't have all of the answers, and that is a scary place to be. And I share that because the more that I really felt into this moment, the more I really started to really see the gravity of this big career change that I'm making, and the leap that I'm about to take. The more that I realize that there are so many of us who are going through similar kind of leaps of faith. Maybe you're experiencing one right now. Maybe it's something that you've just gone through, or you're maybe starting to possibly think about for the future. And I want to create a safe space for us all to be able to have that moment of recognition. Like, it is really hard to not know what the future is going to bring. Even though, like, on one aspect, I could say, like, we have no control. But the truth is like, we do have control. It is the work that we're doing every single day to invest towards what we want, whether we're educating ourselves, whether we're putting ourselves out there, whether we're building up a skill set or working on ourselves, like whatever it might be, we have control only over what we put into it. And it's really hard because no amount of work that you put into something and no amount of control that you have can guarantee an outcome. And I think that is the hardest part. It's not the control of what we're doing, but it's not having control over the outcome that is so, so scary. And this shows up in our lives in so many different ways, whether, a career change, maybe it's something within your current career, like you got a new boss, or it can show up in your family not having control over the people in your family and what they're doing with their lives and the choices that they're making or how they're navigating the world. Not knowing where life is about to take you and what the result is going to be. It is scary. And it's also so special and so rewarding and so exciting. And those two things can be true at the same time. It's almost like the fear that we start to build up or the anxiety we build up before we go on a vacation. You're like, I have all these ideas about how it's going to be. I've picked a spot. Here we go. I'm going to take this arduous journey because the actual travel part is usually pretty stressful. And then you get to your destination and then you see what happens. And you can't control the weather. You can't control who you're going to interact with. You can't even for sure know all the details of what you're going to experience. But you just hope that it is worth the effort that you've put in to get there. And so often it is, right? Like magical things. People always say magical things happen on vacation. And so what I'm kind of trying to hope, and I think that this is true, is if you can find a place within yourself where you kind of approach life in that same way. Like, yes, this is a lot of work to get here, but if I get here and I show up and I come with an open heart and I'm as present as I can be, magical things will happen. That's what I'm hoping for. And so this is very much the heart of today's episode. I'm going to be talking about what happens when we stop rushing and we start being really present with our lives, and a couple of ways that I've been thinking about ways to do that and making that switch on the inside of your mind. And I'm also going to be talking a little bit about the 9 principles of harmony that come from the Brima Institute. This is something that I've gone back to over and over again. It was introduced to me when I was in my yoga teacher training. It's something that I've passed along when I've taught gentle yoga in yoga teacher trainings myself. And it's something that I thread in through all of my yoga teaching, but it's also something that I have tried to keep in mind in my life off of the yoga mat too. So lots of that ahead. But first, let's pause and do our astro check-in. What is happening astrologically right now? Now, we are coming off of a full moon. Yesterday, we had a big, beautiful full moon. And oh my gosh, you guys, if you have a chance, if you're listening to this on Tuesday, the day that this drops, make an effort to go outside right around 7, 8 p.m. when the moon is rising, because the moon right now is looking absolutely gorgeous in the sky. It's that time of year where we get that really big, bright orange moon, and it starts to rise all the way up by like 10 p.m. It's back to being a shiny white moon. But what's really important for us to remember is that anytime we start to come off of the full moon, full moons can go a variety of different ways. It is a time of illumination, of culmination. And a lot of times we talk about letting go with full moons. That could have been a really big reason why I was so emotional yesterday with lots of tears. And this is very common during full moons. In fact, if you don't already start tracking what's going on in your life and inside of your internal world, along with the lunar cycle, I highly recommend it. And I have a ton of resources on my website, abitfromwithin.com, that will help you with this process. Even if you're new, even if you're not sure what to expect out of yourself, remember, even little notes every once in a while can help really, really illuminate big patterns and revelations that you're having inside of yourself. You might notice, like, oh yeah, I literally always cry during a full moon. It is what I do. Very, very common. You would not be weird at all if that is true for you. But anyway, back to what I was saying. So full moons are this time of culmination, illumination. A lot of times we talk about letting go. And sometimes we are at different stages of that process. So there's a reason why like full moon circles happen. They're often usually community events, usually connect with other people. You can do that under the moon. You can celebrate, you can enjoy food, you can dance. There can be a moment of like this big heart moment during full moons as well. But usually at some point, whether it's on the full moon or in the days that follow the full moon, we do start to enter this period of release and of letting go. And if we look at it like big picture and we zoom out, we see that the last 2 weeks of the lunar cycle, so from the full moon, it's all the way waning down until the new moon, that we are moving into darkness. So there are themes throughout those 2 weeks where we are just kind of surrendering, where we are assessing, where we are gathering what is, and we are putting certain things to bed. So I encourage you to think of that yourself over this next week is what are you letting go of right now? And what is possibly in your way? I think it's so important that we regularly think about these things, that we don't just get bogged down with what's new, what do we need to achieve, what are our goals, how are we going? But there has to be balance. There has to be, okay, well, what am I letting go of? And what do I need to reckon with inside of myself, or what am I carrying around that is too heavy? What is in my way? Where are the obstacles? And this is a really good time to do that, to kind of clean house, so to speak. And not only internally, but it can be also a really good time to do that externally. In fact, one of the things that Dave and I did, actually, we've been working quite a bit on our house over the past week, which hopefully I'll tell you more about here soon. But one of the things that we did that we were very intentional about doing with the full moon is that we decided to clean out our closets. Now, this isn't like a special ritual specifically tied to the full moon, but I wanted it to be around this time where there is an act of releasing, right? So by going through our closet and really identifying the things that we loved, but maybe they aren't in the best shape anymore, the things that we just never wore that we thought we were going to, even just, clothes are an interesting thing. There's so much emotion tied to clothes. And in fact, it's like the older I get, the more I look at items and I'm like, wow, I've had this for like 10 years or longer. Is it time to let it go? How has my style changed? How has my life changed? Even with like the wedding photography stuff, I'm like, I'm not gonna have to wear black as much. I can start wearing more color, or I can start wearing white because I never had anything nice that was white because you can't wear white to a wedding. So things like that. But the reason that I wanted to do it during the full moon is not just that physical letting go of something, but also I felt like the energy of the full moon would help with the emotional part of letting go. So this is something that, again, that I recommend, and just having this awareness of working with the lunar cycles, because if you are at a place in your life where you need to purge some things, maybe you're downsizing or cleaning up a certain room or doing just something where you're making some space and it's hard to do, especially the more emotions we tie to things. Doing it during this full moon part of the lunar cycle can be super, super helpful. Now, the last thing I want to kind of tie into this astro segment is that we have a lot of planets that are in air element energy right now. Sun is in Libra, Venus is in Libra, Mercury just moved back into Libra after its kind of travel through its retrograde. We also have Saturn, which is in Aquarius. So it is talking to the Sun and to Venus right now. They're in an exact trine, which is 120 degrees apart, which is a very favorable, it's a good vibration. And then we also have Mars over in Gemini. And so those are all three of the air signs: Gemini, Aquarius, and Libra. So what does all of this mean? It means that it is a really good time to have ideas and inspiration and to think of things differently. So if that is happening for you, I highly recommend putting those things to paper, putting your ideas into action, really being concrete about the things that you're thinking about. You put this this inspiration to good use by not just kind of thinking it's a fluke, but really do act on it, because this is a gift. And I can't believe it, but we are about halfway through our Libra season already. I know I've been keeping my eye on it because Dave is born on the first day of Scorpio season. And so I know we're 2 weeks away from his birthday. And so as I've been keeping my eye on it, I've just been thinking about how fast time is going and how fast this year is going, which, this is just going to be a perfect segue into slowing down and being present, because we need that right now. So let's take a quick break and then let's dive into how to be in more harmony with yourself. So while life has been crazy, and my work life has been very busy with fall sessions and wrapping up wedding season, I will say that, and I mentioned this a little bit last week, that I've been very intentionally trying to create more space in my life. And for me, this was a strange process because as a wedding photographer, you already have jobs that are booked out for, almost a whole year or more. And so last December, when I had decided, okay, I'm ready to close this chapter, I knew it was going to be a long time before I could actually see those changes, right? Like I couldn't just walk away at that point. I had to see it through. And so now this is my first fall, and also being consciously aware that things are changing, that I'm able to move and live with a lot more intention than I have before. Usually at this time of year, I'm in such a deep place of survival mode that I never, stop and do kind of like fall activities or get into fall recipes or things like that, because I'm usually just in my office at my desk trying to get as much editing as I can done. So this year, I'm being very intentional about changing that. And, I wish that I could say that for me, that I could have just been intentional about it without having to change my career. I'm sure that is possible for a lot of you out there, that you can't just change your career to get more time in your life, right? But for me, it was a matter of looking at how I had been year after year after year, and no matter how much intentions I was trying to set or how present I was trying to be, it wasn't possible for me to show up for myself the way that I wanted, doing the work that I was doing, how I was doing it, and thus the need for a big change. And I do think that is an important reckoning for anyone to do. And I'm getting off on a little bit of a tangent, but I'll just finish that thought, is that while I think intention can go far, I do think that you have to look at the scope of your life and realize when something is not working, and then find the bravery to do whatever you can about it, whatever that looks like. But all of this is to say that as I've been moving into this fall, I've been trying to be more conscious of, well, what does a person do with time outside of work? What else is out there? And I know that sounds really silly, but I'm sharing it because it's a real thing that I've been through. Is what does life look like when you're not just obsessed with your career or your job or what you're creating or your output? And so one of the things that I was doing was being on Pinterest, getting some ideas. Well, because I love Pinterest. I put a lot of stuff out from our blog out on Pinterest, and then I'm on Pinterest getting ideas for things like recipes and, quotes and different things like that. And somehow I ended up down this rabbit hole where I was looking at my pins, my pins on my own boards that I've created over the years. And I can't even remember what year I got on Pinterest. I feel like it must have been in college. And so that was a lot of years ago. That was, I think, 13 years ago is when I graduated college. So clearly a lot's changed, but I was going back through some of my old boards and I found this quote that just stood out to me so much. So it says, once she stopped rushing through life, she was amazed how much more life she had time for. And this was amazing to me because I penned this a long time ago, probably not when I graduated, but in the years that quickly followed that. And I felt like this kind of full circle moment where I'm like, man, I was already interested in this then. And then what I did was keep rushing through life. And finally, here I am, now 35 years old, finally ready to change the actions involved so that I can experience exactly what this quote is talking about. Once she stopped rushing through life, she was amazed how much more life she had time for. And I almost started crying when I read this because I feel like this is what I'm living right now. Like, as I have scheduled less weddings, as I have started to be, again, more conscious of this change coming and slowing down, I'm starting to realize that there is a lot more space for life. And what does that look like? And what does it mean? And how do you fill that life? And how do you make sure that you don't start rushing again? Because right now I feel like I'm living some sort of, juggle between the rushing and then the having time for life. And so, like, today was a great example. I had my last wedding last night, and I knew that today I didn't want to treat it like a normal, typical Monday where I'm very focused only on work, like get the podcast done, get the blog done, go, churn it all out. I wanted to be plugged into my life. I had some errands I had to run this morning. I had this butternut squash that was already cut up in the refrigerator that I knew I was like, if I don't use it like today, it's not going to make it. And so I've been wanting to make a butternut squash soup, and I've never done that before. Is that weird to say? But I've never done it before, and so I really wanted to do that. And so I just decided this morning, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to be in the day I need to have. If I want to cook soup, I need to be able to go to the market and get some stuff to put in that. I wanted to compare a couple different recipes. I wanted to spend some time moving my body today, so I went and did some yoga and got on the bicycle and just moved my body, listened to some music. These were things that I knew I wanted to prioritize today for my own mental health and for being plugged into my life. And I had moments where I was balancing that desire to rush, to try to churn out some pictures, to try to upload a gallery, to try to answer an email, to try to make the dinner as quickly as possible. And so this is tricky. And I think that, I guess it has to be because I'm living it right now. Like, when you are in the balance between the two, and you're probably never going to be able to 100% never find yourself not rushing, and maybe. But usually at some point, whether it's a little bit or a lot, you're going to be bumping into what it feels like to be balancing the rushing and feeling like there's a lot on your plate and trying to be present in the moment and enjoy things that are important to you or that you get to experience because you're here living it. And so I started to create, just this little list of like, what do you do? Like, how do you enjoy life? And of course, the expectation is not that you have to be 100% enjoying life 100% of the time. But if you are working on this the way that I am, what are some of these things that might be missing or maybe out of balance? I thought I'd share my list with you. So the first thing that I put on my list is consume stories. To me, this is such a key element of enjoying life. Like, when I'm enjoying life, I'm listening to stories and sharing stories. I love books. I love reading. I'm reading a lot, especially during in my work life during editing season, I get to listen to a lot of audiobooks. So audiobooks, podcast, YouTube interviews, TV shows, movies, theater, reading books, like consuming stories is so important, in my opinion, as for enjoying life. The next thing is creating. Now, I don't know if this is going to be true for everyone, but for me, creating is an essential part of enjoying life. So whether you are, being kind of crafty and making something yourself. I've seen a lot of people recently online that have been, doing crafts to make their house more fall. So like baking sliced oranges and stringing them up for like a little bit of decor, carving pumpkins, those kind of things. Like all of that is an act of creation. Of course, there's actual art, like I just got a paint by numbers canvas thing, and I love to paint anyway, but I've never done a paint by numbers, but the picture was so beautiful. It was like this big mountainscape with these canoes, and I thought, that looks up my alley. I'm going to try that. So I got that because I'm like, painting is a part of enjoying life. Not just painting. For me, painting is, but creating for any of you guys. Even like, I was thinking like, even if you're not super creative, like who doesn't sometimes just like pick up a pen and doodle? Or I don't know, like you're sitting on the side of the road, and I was thinking about the times in my life as a kid that you'd take a rock and you'd start drawing on concrete with rock. Even working on your house can be an act of creation. Rearranging things, painting a wall, decorating, like being creative. I think it's so important, because then you get to enjoy the fruits of what you've created or share it with others, which is such another big important part, which leads me to my next piece, which is connection. So connecting with other people, connecting with their hearts, whether you're listening to a podcast like this, or whether you're calling up a friend, getting coffee or lunch, texting somebody that you miss them, or writing them an email, talking to your closest friends, your loved ones, your family, even just sitting in the same space as somebody else. Even I was thinking of this for connection too, listening to music, especially music that takes you back to a point of connection, like a certain time in your life. And you can always connect with yourself too by doing things like journaling, going for a walk, being your own comfort and connection. But I was mostly thinking about connecting with other souls. Of course, nourishing yourself has to be on that list. So whether you're cooking delicious meals, getting snacks, eating fresh fruit, sipping tea, staying hydrated, having some sweets, like enjoying sweets, all of that is such an important part. For me, food is a really big part of enjoying life. Cleaning, of course, I would have to add this in, but it's important. No, whether you love cleaning your house, I know some people have a hard time with that. Personally, I really enjoy cleaning a space, making it pretty, making it enjoyable, but also cleaning your body, cleaning your, like the temple of your body, washing your hair, putting on lotion, those kind of things. Like that is a way to enjoy life. Gathering resources. So taking stock of what you need, what you'd like, what you desire, and then figuring out how to bring those things to life. So, of course, this is kind of a nice way also of saying shopping, but like if you don't have the money to shop, like there are so many ways you can get creative about, trading with other people, finding like thrifty ways to get new things, or even going through the old things that you had that you forgot about and making them into new resources right now. I think that can be a really fun and important part of life. And then finally, I've got 2 more pieces that I came down to. And this is an ongoing list. This is a living list. So if you guys have inspiration from this, things you definitely feel like I'm missing that I hadn't thought about, I hope you weigh in. But the second to last one is you root. So in order to enjoy life, you have to slow down. You have to be grounded. You have to think clearly. When you're rooted, you're not rushing. When you're rooted, you can make time for yourself and for the things that are important. So you root. That's important. You also root for yourself, right? Like you cheer yourself on. And then the final one is you change. So you evolve. You allow yourself to grow as a person. Maybe your style changes. Maybe your haircut changes. Maybe you actually start doing that thing that you never let yourself do before, that you could never have seen yourself doing in the past, or that thing that you always wanted, the thing you said, if I could, I would do that. You start becoming that. You start allowing yourself, giving yourself the permission to expand and evolve and to change. That's my list right now for ways just to, if you can do some of those things, you stop rushing so much. And it takes me back to that quote I just shared, once she stopped rushing through life, she was amazed how much more life she had time for. And I think the point is you don't get more time to live on accident. You actually have to be really intentional about it. Because if this life has taught me anything, is that it'll just sweep you away. It'll sweep you up. There's always some kind of emergency, right? There's always something that you have to get to or need to add to your list, or you can always be in that go, go, go mode. And that's why it takes so much bravery to really figure out systems that allow you to hold space for yourself and for the people in your life, or the people that you're serving, whether it's your family or your job or other loved ones. But the whole point is you can't do that by accident. It doesn't just happen by chance. You have to do it intentionally. And now one thing that I thought would be a great companion to this is to share the 9 principles of harmony that come from the Brema Center. The Brema Center is a nonprofit, and to be honest, I'm not sure of a lot of their work. These 9 principles were passed down to me by one of my yoga teachers when I was in yoga teacher training. And they're amazing for body work, but they're also just really important for finding harmony within yourself. And so, while I kind of want to expand on each of these, I think that what it would be better is just to share them with you, to read them through, and maybe share a couple that I really like and how they have really been helping support me with this journey of not rushing, with being a little bit more present, finding that inner harmony. And then I encourage you to go check out the Breema.com, so BREEMA.com. You can see the 9 principles really easy right there, and you can read all of their explanations for each one of these and maybe pick 1 or 2 that you might want to work on. So I'll read them here, and then if this resonates, continue to find this off the pod. So the first one is body comfortable. You can even just notice inviting that into your body and see if that already changes your own sense of harmony. The next one is no extra. That one I think can be a little bit tricky because it's well, what is extra? But just think about that. What does that mean to you? In order to be harmonious, there can be no extra. Firmness and gentleness. That is actually just one principle. Firmness and gentleness together. The next one is full participation. I even just love the way that these sound. Like each of these, as it comes out of my mouth, I'm like, yes, that feels so right. Okay, so we had full participation. And then the next one is mutual support. Mutual support. No judgment. That one is so important too. I mean, these are all important, but no judgment. Single moment, single activity. So single moment, single activity. It's being in the moment. And then I love this one too. No hurry, no pause. And the last one is no force. You can see why I love all of those so much, and you can see how important all of those principles are for any kind of body work, whether you are going out on trails or going to the gym, or whether you're practicing yoga or another kind of exercise. These are so important when it comes to how we treat ourselves and our bodies. And, so much of, I think that's part of the reason why exercise is so important for us, or taking time to be with our bodies, because we can pay attention more to what we're doing, and we can really zoom in to the activity that we're on, be present in a way that we are not always used to in our life outside of that. And it can remind us of how to be in our everyday life. And so I literally love all of these. No hurry, no pause is one of my favorites. It's always been one of my favorites. And I love this one because of the cyclical nature of it, right? We are in a rhythm with ourselves. We are not rushing. We are not behind. We are not stopping and then playing catch up. We are in a constant state of flow. And so I love no hurry, no pause. And the other one I think that just really, really resonates with me is full participation. Because I don't know about you, but I catch myself all the time not fully participating. I'll be sitting downstairs with Dave having a great conversation, or an in-depth conversation, and I'll catch myself looking at the clock. Okay, how much more is this going to go on for? What do I have to do next? I'm not fully participating when I'm doing that. I really try to, one of the areas that I try to be really open and present is when I'm spending time with my dog, right? But I'm a human. It happens naturally, and I'll be hanging out with him, and then a text will come in, and suddenly I'm not tugging so good on that toy anymore. I'm not making eye contact with him. I'm not fully participating. I think that one is a really good one to catch yourself on, and just to ask yourself, invite yourself to fully participate when you're making dinner, when you're in the car, when you're chatting with a friend, when you're writing an email. Be fully participating in that moment, and notice the change that happens in yourself. And I think, obviously, if you're still listening to this, you're with me in this sense that we want more for ourselves. And there are so many reasons in life that pull us away from our own harmony, that cause us to hurry, that cause us to be judgmental, that cause us to be uncomfortable, that cause us to just be rushing along, trying to catch up. And it's just not about those things. And it's up to us. Like, you are the only one who can change that for yourself in small and big ways. So it is my sincerest hope that this episode has given you a little bit of inspiration and a little bit of motivation, a little bit of encouragement, a little bit of all three of those things, so that you can enjoy your life more, right? So that you can realize that the less that you're rushing, the more life you have time for. And I know that this stuff is not easy. I know how easy it is to get swept away in the mundane, in the routines that you've already established, in the behaviors, and in all of it. So don't overwhelm yourself, but just remember you can start small, and small changes, little by little, even recognizing like the patterns of the moon, little changes can go a long way in your journey. And I hope you know that I am here to help support you each week on this podcast. Also every day I share a lot of stuff on TikTok. I've got blogs on my website. And of course, we have a wonderful community on Patreon where you can connect with me that way too. Let me know what kind of yoga classes you're looking for, meditations. We can have conversations about these topics. I'd love to connect with each of you. So please feel free to find me, patreon.com/abitfromwithin. And for everybody listening on Patreon, if you guys want to weigh in on this conversation too, please do. All right, you guys, I think that's going to do it for us today. Of course, we have to end with our card drawing. So I'm going to be drawing or shuffling these cards. This deck is the Wild Offerings Oracle. This is the Tasha Silver deck, and honestly, my eyes kept drawing to this throughout today's podcast. So just give a little shuffle here and see how the universe wants to contribute to today's conversation. Whoop, there it is. Just flew across the room. Creative blocks. If you are an artist of any kind, you can offer all work to the divine, making it God's alone. I offer this for the highest good to the benefit of the planet. Release me from any blocks and restrictions. May this serve all who need. Well, I mean, personally, I'm resonating with that as an artist myself and as somebody who's in that scary place of not knowing what's next. So I feel like I resonate with that, and I'm curious. The card drawings are the single most talked about part of the podcast. I always have people who message me saying, oh my gosh, that card, it resonated. So if that one spoke to you, if you have a special story with this card, I'd love to know. So please let me know. All right, you guys, with that, go enjoy the rest of your day or your evening. Thank you so much for spending this time with me. I can't wait to talk to you again next week.